Okay.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Production Matters on IMTS Spark. In today's session titled Decide, Choose the Best Cleaning Process, we are talking with Darren Williams, PhD, Cleaning Research Group Leader at Sam Houston State University, and Barbara and Ed Koenigsberg, consultants at BFK Solutions. Sometimes it's easy to become stuck deciding the best process to clean your precision metal parts. To get out of this rut, it is wise to consult a parts cleaning professional that will suggest efficient, successful techniques to choose, test, and ramp up new processes for cleaning and surface prep, whether you're on site or working remotely. There will be a Q&A session at the end of this presentation. Asking a question is easy. Simply type in your question in the chat function at any time, and we will try to do our best to get to all of them. Now let's get started. Welcome, Darren, Barb, and Ed.
Hi.
So first, let's talk about how a company knows it's time to try a new cleaning process.
So yeah, why decide on a new cleaning process, and what happens when you stay stuck? And by the way, I thank you, Laura, for saying you can come and consult with Darren and or with us. That's always great. What we're here to do, in addition, is show you things that you can do right in your very own shop to make the process so much better and to actually make a decision and move forward. And a lot of people say, well, we don't really have to change. Here's what happens. You get, and we see it with clients all the time, too often. There's a never-ending round of meetings. There's evaluations. They've got either physical stacks of brochures on their desk or all over the floor usually, and nothing happens. And sometimes we've found them a couple of years into the process, they're losing profits. The customers are getting angry. They spent a lot of engineering time, and they're stunting.
They still haven't gotten there.
They still haven't gotten there. The company is stunted. Yeah. So, is there a tooth fairy?
Yeah. So we keep trying new cleaning agents. We keep adding steps to the process. It seems to work for a while, but nothing improves. What do you do?
Oh, you call us, right?
Yeah. Well, the scattershot approach, it rarely works. I mean, occasionally you'll stumble upon a right answer, but that's not really a very efficient way of going about it. Because everybody's looking for that miracle cure. Either a coworker or a sales rep says, you got to use this particular product. And they say, okay, we hope it works. But there's a lot of emphasis on the word hope.
We've had guys bring in household cleaners that they've seen on late night television. I guess that's if Netflix fails, then you have to go back to commercial. And we've tested it. We've taken it out and done essentially blind testing, and then shown them the results. And rarely do they work as well. Hate to break that bubble.
And one of my favorite quotes from Barbara is that cleaning is a process, not a chemical. You could also say the same with cleaning is a process, not a machine. So you need to know the full process, not just one particular part of that process.
Yeah. And you want to be able to, get to know your vendors, get to know the sales reps, and they do know their own product lines. But look everywhere. Become your own best expert, because only you know what you really need for your product, for your situation.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see.
So, how do you change? Showing us the next slide, Lori.
Try it, yes.
There we go. So I'm in charge of changing the cleaning process, but I run into roadblocks within the company.
Wow. So
That's
I can-
universal.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I made, as you see me glancing down, I made a few notes because unlike late night infomercials, I don't have it memorized, nor do we have a teleprompters. But really, overcoming the tooth fairy syndrome requires taking a rational approach. Beyond that, you have to get buy-in. And so you have to have a team, whether they're riding Harleys or whatever, or scooters, they all have to be there. When I started this, I didn't like the concept of a team because, quite frankly, as a woman in this business, I would be asked to Xerox the papers on the team. But once I started doing this, I found that having the team is absolutely invaluable. And then the question is, who should be on that team? Well, it depends. And it depends the size of your company, the number of divisions. Certainly, there are two essential people in addition to you, unless you're the president. You've got to get management involved. So if you're management, you're one of the two. And you've got to get at least one representative of operations and assembly, the worker bees who actually do the cleaning and assembly. You are lost if you don't have them. You are lost if management doesn't understand what you're doing. So you have to communicate in words that even management can understand why you are doing what you are doing. There are other fat people that should be in other representatives. One is facilities, because you don't want the new cleaning equipment to get stuck in the door. It has.
Yes, it has happened. Yes.
It has
They
happened.
need
Like,
a new electrical drop and voltage and so on.
or you don't
new ceiling.
New ceiling,
Oh,
the
wow.
hoist.
Oh my
We have
gosh.
seen nobody measured the hoist. Does it bump into the ceiling? No, it does not. What when it happens when it's lifted totally up? Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't think about
But
that.
yep. And so you've got to have safety and regulatory, and that could mean people who are involved with the air district, the water district, product safety, people who are involved with the FDA. And maybe you need to get the supply chain involved, because very rarely, occasionally, do you sometimes see people that start with a chunk of metal and then turn it into a finished part. Usually there's this whole Latin dance of suppliers of moving things from place to place, and it's more Latin than Latin dance. It's an international. It's the United Nations, folks. You know, it's and maybe even need to get purchasing on board.
And I would add too that not every one of those stakeholders has to be at every meeting. You break it into working groups and so on. So it's be efficient, you know.
Right. You know, you're absolutely right. And occasionally, it helps to get the customer involved.
Yes.
Because every once in a while, the final customer sort of pontificates what they want you to do. But you know what? They have no idea what's involved. And they may say, you're required to meet this spec, this spec, this spec, this spec. Oh, do you want that? No, what we really want to make sure that there's not a bunch of oil left on the part. But these specs don't talk about oil. Oh, well, okay. Talk to them a little bit.
Yeah.
It's hard to do that. Yeah.
That's good.
So
I've never heard that, Barb. That's interesting. I've never heard that from anyone.
You've never heard that?
No, to talk to the customer. That's good insight.
Well, you know, I grew up in the rag business. So my dad used to always say, my dad owned a retail business, and he would say, Barbara, he would rehearse his sales pitches on me. And he would say, you know, Barbara, the customer's always right. But you have to listen not only to what the customer says, but what they mean. And boy, that's a toughie. I'm still learning. Thanks, Dad. Yeah.
But as far as talking to them about what kind of process to use, that's what's interesting to me. I never thought we should ask that, but that's a great idea.
Yes.
So what happens when management won't allow travel or site visits during the pandemic? A lot of people are going through that. What happens? What is the solution there?
Wow. Well, let's see. Do you want to take some of that? Or no, let me start a little.
Yeah, we can start.
Actually, I'll start a little bit. I kind of like that little graphic because I thought, gee, I don't miss sitting in an airport. I do miss getting out to see people. So yeah, let me talk to that a little bit, and then we can move on. I've left the screen. Sorry about that. I've decided to just, here we are again.
Yeah.
That I was inspired by to address this because we were in a meeting of one of the cleaning associations, and everybody was bemoaning the fact that you can't travel and you can't do anything. And I said, you know what? I've had no problem with virtual site visits. And the response from some of the vendors was, well, of course, you just teach things. You're just showing a bunch of slides and you throw them up on the screen and you can do that from anywhere. You can't do a site visit remotely. That is not true. I am here to, I realized right away that in the past, 9 months that we've had this lovely pandemic and zombie apocalypse going on, in the past, during that time, we have not been traveling because everybody's calling from home and a few people sneak into work a few at a time, that kind of thing. All of our process improvement evaluations have been done remotely, and we are able to do site visits. We have not done death by PowerPoint. Not one thing has been an educational program. It has all been, the machine isn't working, get in there, figure out what's going on. And that has worked for everything from machine shops to people who are making complex medical devices. So what is the secret? Oh, it's another meeting. No. Okay. Yeah. You have, this.
Yeah.
Ooh, brand new. This was my gift to me. The old one had a hand crank, it was a little out of date. But you take the smartphone into the shop, you stick it down into the equipment, you move it around the room, everybody waves at you through the mask, and some people are at home, and you just move forward on that.
And I think, and it's not just, say, when we're doing a site visit, if you have your shop and you're not all there in the facility, you can still do this.
Most of us are not all there, Jim.
Well, I know I haven't been for decades,
but no, if you're not all, that's true. And you don't have to. We've heard from several startup companies actually that it's nice that they don't have to get a whole bunch of people on a plane. Mm-hmm. You can check multiple sites. You can have people from other sites there. And then what we noticed is that sometimes we would do a site visit and we would forget to look at something. And before this all happened, it was, well, can you tell me what happened? And sometimes they the client would take a few still shots. But now with the proliferation of web meetings, you can say, hey, can we do this again? Can we it becomes less like an audit, less something to be scared of. We could just take the camera back in and say, can we look at this passivation stage one more time, please? Ooh, what's that puddle on the floor? You get to look at it again. You get another chance. And I think people are much more willing to do that.
And I don't think this is going to go away. This type of approach is going to go away. In a few months when, the vaccine has been distributed and we no longer have the medical aspects of it. Mm-hmm. We still have the fact that people have gotten used to this new normal to some extent, that they can do things in a virtual arena that they hadn't been doing before, and they're still you don't have to send maybe 10 people on a site visit to a meeting,
And
or you don't. You can still have somewhat of a hybrid approach.
so this is important both it's important in setting up a process, troubleshooting, and also in ongoing monitoring.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we have remote process monitoring.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the supplier of the cleaning equipment or the cleaning agent will take a look at it. Sometimes you will look at it. And there's nothing wrong with saying visual observation, making it part of the process ramp up, part of the ongoing monitoring. That lets you actually move forward. And it means that you don't have people saying, oh, I love the new process. And then, well, show it to me. You go in and maybe it hasn't really happened yet. You can, it becomes less checking up, less auditing, and more a normal way of doing things. So,
So how do I become a product cleaning expert? And how can I stay up to date?
Well, there's lots of ways to sort of sharpen the saw, if you will, and learn more about cleaning processes. Of course, you're right here on IMTS Spark, associated with the IMTS. You can get information in talks like this. There's also the Parts Cleaning Conference. But again, those kinds of interactions many times are knowledge-based. They have lots of PowerPoints and text and lecture. It'd be nice to sort of go into an open-ended or hands-on environment. So that's why we started the product cleaning workshops here at Sam Houston State with Barb and Ed. And we wanted to provide something that wasn't available in any of the other training areas. And so we actually get into the lab. We actually do test runs. We have samples and soils and ultrasound, solvent cleaning, vapor degreasing. So there's other options other than webinars and presentations at, say, like a hotel venue. And nowadays with the COVID and the restrictions on travel, in this spring is probably likely that even if we're allowed to travel and to have meetings, that people's budgets may not have recovered and travel funds may not be there. And so we're going to host the webinar, the product quality cleaning workshop in a remote fashion starting on May 10th. So it's going to be, instead of 2 days of 8 hours a day, we're going to go for 2 weeks at about 2 hours a day, where you can actually interact with us on video with the cleaning equipment. You can ask questions right there. You can make suggestions. We can try things out that you want us to try out on the equipment. And so I think it's going to be as close to hands-on as we can make it. So that's another way to kind of become an expert in your cleaning processes, whether it's aqueous or solvent or maybe some sort of dry method or vibratory cleaning. We have quite a bit of different techniques that we can talk about.
And how can people get information about that?
Yes. So if you'll show that slide again.
The same slide. Good point.
Yeah, so that shsu.edu is our website /PQCW. So that's the Product Quality Cleaning Workshop. And if you want to give us your email now, you can put that in the Q&A box too. So we'll put you on our list and keep you posted with the details and the registration links. So, and
what's nice about that, what the program will lack is we haven't yet figured out happy hour. We may be able to do it virtually, but the good part about it is that we'll be able to get you up close to the various cleaning machines, let you look at it. And I frankly, I guess we sort of got the idea because of all the virtual site visits we were doing that indeed we could do quite a bit. Yes. The other exciting thing is that you get continuing education credit from this. Yes. So not only do you get to show your boss a certificate of completion, but you are becoming edumacated. Is that what Homer refers to it as? Yes.
Yes, we've teamed up with Sam Houston State's online instruction group here on campus, and so it'll be really a high bar. It'll be great. The other thing too is there are some advantages to being, looking at something through the computer, because we can take the camera that you're looking
That's
at
right.
with your computer and get down in the instruments, like Barbara said, stick it down in there and look up close. We can't do that in a live workshop. We can't put your head in a vapor degreaser. But we can
You
put the
could,
camera
but
in
it's
there.
not really recommended. Yeah.
But yeah.
Good point.
But so we're excited about this, and I think it's going to be a nice way of doing it.
I'm
Cool.
looking forward to going to that. Or
I
not
want
going
you to be there.
attending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So our company has a small inspection lab. How do we use it effectively? I love that picture, by the way.
We have grandkids. We found that. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
Very cute. Is that
they're
them?
not the grand.
Your
No, that is not.
No.
That is stock photos.
Stock photo.
But it was inspired by engineers that attended the workshop that we had in person, and this is what can actually happen.
Yeah.
Anyway, Darren, I think you wanted to.
Well, I've been on so many plant tours and places that make very rough products like drill pipe. Okay, and then the process is violent and loud and hot, and it's a scary place. Okay, they're producing drilling pipe for the oil and gas industry, but over in the corner is an inspection lab. There haven't been to any plant ever that didn't have some place that they've set aside as a moderately clean environment or a very clean environment where they have some inspection equipment, a tiny little lab. And so one of the options is to make sure that you're using that space that you've set aside for your lab. A lot of times people think laboratories are some super complex and advanced place, but it just can be any place in your plant where you're doing the inspection or maybe mixing in some of the finer elements to your process. And then that's a place that you want to utilize to make those one or two key measurements to ensure the quality of your product. So I think that's the key, is to find the one or two items that you can test that are the key process indicators for your process, so that you can monitor that, you can track that with a control chart or something of that sort, and you can know when your quality is changing before you have product failures.
Right. It's also really important to have really good documentation of what your current process is, and that includes using videos and still photos. Don't just have words that are descriptive. Have a picture of it.
Yeah.
And that's,
You get a
can
cute
always
little inspection scope and just get it right on. Yeah.
That's
it makes
right.
it easier to say, okay, here's what it should look like. Here's what it looks like now. That's not the same thing.
Yes, that's right.
So we got to do something.
A lot of times people start with these low cost USB microscopes that, are $100. And they're surprisingly good. Now, if you start with that sort of low cost inspection and you find that that's not enough, you'll have at least a basis for, going a little bit more expensive. But if you don't start anywhere, then you can't go. But you can get those small scopes and you can take photographs or videos of key parts of your process or your parts, get to know your soils, get to know your substrates, get to know your cleaning solutions. And those may be your key process indicators.
And that's real important, because when you're changing a process, it's having the baseline of what you like about your current process. Cleaning process can be invaluable. And if you have the pictures,
right,
that helps when you're golden.
Also, if you have to basically qualify your product, I mean, you have to show somebody. It could be your own management, or it could be an agency like the FDA. And so this helps.
Yes, and I'm sure if you're working to a particular spec, then you already have you're more of an advanced testing laboratory, because you're trying to ensure that you're meeting those specifications. Yeah. So there's a wide range of capabilities, but also requirements.
Okay. And moving on.
So what if I need lab work? All our troubleshooting is focused on production-related problems.
Yes. So in this situation, you may have a pretty advanced.
Oops, lost you.
But it's focused 100%
Yeah.
on following those production items, and they can't give you space to do your research. Maybe there's a problem with a particular part of your process, but you're still able to produce product, and you want to do research. Maybe you're trying to explore options that will make your process more efficient or even better in some way. And how would you make those tiny little research projects happen in a lab that's already full of work related to production? Well, the most expensive option is to go with an outside contract research lab. They do exist. You can find labs that have the equipment that you need to do the research that you want them to do. You'd have to write a specific statement of work for them to do that research. The advantage for using an external contract research lab is they're probably going to get it in a quick turnaround. So that's where the cost really comes in. If you write a specific statement of work, you have them do the testing. They are expensive, but the thing is they're responsive because they're expensive. So many times if you have an immediate need and an immediate need is driving a budget for that immediate need, then you can go with an external contract research lab. If you're just talking about a new process, that maybe you want to see if a change in cleaning solution would work, then the vendors that sell those cleaning solutions, almost all of them have testing labs. And so you can send them a variety of parts, a heavily soiled part, a lightly soiled part, maybe a complex shape, or maybe multiple substrates to see if you do ferrous metals and aluminum alloys and brass. You may have something that works for the brass and the aluminum, but it removes the corrosion protection from the ferrous metals, and you have flash rust or something of that sort. So you need to send them the variety of parts that you'll be dealing with. But again, your research project would be focused on their products and which product would be best for you. So it wouldn't be quite as open-ended as you may need. And then that's where our research group would fill a niche, the cleaning research group. We've done things related to solvent blending, verifying if solvent formulations were azeotropic or not for use in a vapor degreaser. We've done contact angle work, looking at cleaning procedures. We've looked at sort of remanufacturing work where you have to remove adhesive coatings and paints from various alloys prior to rework. So we have an eclectic mix of instruments and equipment. And so if it does fit things that we have, then that would be something that we could help out with. But as far as our concern is, we're not a high throughput, high turnaround research lab like you would have in an external contract research lab. So the time period for those projects might be a little bit extended.
Yeah,
a lot of times we use student labor too.
Yeah, you're using the students for some of this. They do have other things to do, like
right. They have
coursework and exams.
But the other thing that I would like to discuss real briefly in this one, sometimes the lab is focused on proving the product is clean enough using the current process so that the customer won't scream. So the tests in your lab are in your group are designed in a certain way. Mm-hmm. When you're setting up a new process, it's important to understand what the tests are going to do for you.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And
I think one of my pet peeves is that people come up to me and say, we do semi-DX. We can't identify the organic, the carbon-based compound that's causing the problem. Mm-hmm. And a lot of lubes, even water-based lubes, have carbon-based compounds, and you don't want that crap on the parts once they're cleaned, or you can't coat.
Right.
Well, semi-DX is not going to give you an answer on that one because it's designed for inorganic, for stuff that's not carbon. So it's really important to get together with the team, maybe even with a customer, and find out what that customer is expecting. And when you change your process, you find the group that will do the job for you and do it in a, what's the word I want? In a very neutral, very cost-effective manner. Mm-hmm. The other small, yeah, go ahead.
And with all of these other things too, I mean, the companies are worried about non-disclosure. You know, they don't want to send you parts or data or anything like that if they think you're going to go publish that in the open literature. But that is not a problem. We sign non-disclosure agreements for all of this work. We would like the students to be able to make presentations and write papers according to their work, but typically we publish the procedures, not the data. So if a company gives us a research project to study a couple of solvents and so on, we would never publish that data. We would maybe publish a process that we use to collect that data, a certain way of doing the distillation or a certain way of measuring the contact angle. And so there would be processes that we could publish that are you know, open and public. But as far as the data that we would have for a particular client, we would not publish that. So there's no worries about that. And again, all of these, even the vendors would sign non-disclosure agreements for the data that they collect for you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, NDA is today now. It's like, hello, can you sign an NDA? Sure.
Right, exactly.
Hello. You know, it's secret.
That's
secret.
right. Yes.
But it's important, and everybody's got to respect everyone's privacy. That's
yes.
Yeah. Ah.
So what happens when a safety or environmental group vetoes all the cleaning processes that work? That can be very discouraging, I'm sure.
Yes, it is.